just a little heads up there, we're now recording. So my name's Claire. You guys have gotten a couple emails from me, a couple dozen invites for all of these trainings, and a lot of you already know me. So I've been with Horizon 5 years, actually last Monday, which was like a huge thing. So I'm a lifer with Horizon. Absolutely love this company. And I started out leasing agent. A lot of you already know this little spiel I've got. Started out leasing agent part-time. Week after I graduated from the University of Oregon, I got the promotion to leasing manager. So that was quite a thrill and a fun ride. And then last October, I transitioned over to the training team. So Lindsay Palmer, she's the director of the team HRA. So who wants to go first and kind of introduce themselves? Don't be shy. Anthony, yeah.
Hello, my name is Anthony. I am leasing manager over here at Vineyard North Campus. I have been working with Horizon for just barely a month now. I worked in this industry for 8 years now, and switched over and left my company, switched over to Horizon.
Yeah, Horizon's the best. And venue is VNC. They're over in Florida, Tampa. So I'm just going to stop talking and let you guys go next.
All right, I'll go. My name is Scarlett. I am from the Cottages on Lindbergh, which is in West Lafayette, Indiana. I have been with Horizon for maybe about a month and a week, but I've been in property management for about 4 years now.
Cool, well, I'll go next. I'm Catherine Fawcett. I'm at the Branbury Apartments in Provo. I was a leasing agent for about a year and a couple months, and then I just really got thrown into leasing manager about a week ago, so all really new.
Okay, I'll go. Let's see. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Brittany. I work at Highlander at North Campus in Southern California. And I have been in this position, leasing manager, here since February, so 4 months. And I've been doing student housing for 5 years. So yeah, that's me.
Hi, my name's Renee. I am near Seattle in Washington, in Kirkland, Washington, at Totem Lake Heights. And I've been with Horizon like 2 months. This is my 2nd month, so I'm fairly new. I'm an assistant property manager, so I do leasing, accounting. I feel like I do everything here. So this is going to be a really helpful class for me to kind of get the whole leasing. This is the first time. We're a very small property. We have only 92 apartments here, but right now I have 9 vacancies coming up in July, and I'm freaking out.
You're gonna do great.
Nice to meet you guys.
Michelle? Oh, hold on. I'm gonna unmute you. There you go.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. Yeah, I guess I'm it. So I'm Michelle. I have been here since September, so getting close to a year. I started out as a leasing agent in September and then kind of went into leasing manager unofficially in about November or so, and then officially in February. And it's actually my first time in property management. Before that I was in culinary for 10 years, management for that. But this is great. Yeah, but I'm in Redmond, Washington, neighbor to Renee, over east side of on the east side, what they call it. So yeah.
Thanks. And we've got Lindsay who just joined us. I mentioned you a little bit, Lindsay. So do you want to do a little introduction?
Sure. Sorry I was late, you guys. I was just finishing up another call. I'm Lindsay Palmer. I have been with Horizon for 7.5 years. Started as a part-time leasing consultant. I've worn many different hats since then. I started out at Kook Housing in what Greg Beckel refers to as God's country. It's Pullman, Washington. Little tiny town in the middle of a wheat field. If the college wasn't there, you wouldn't know it existed. So when I graduated, I moved back to the west side, like Seattle area. I joined the accounting team, was on the accounting team for a couple of years, and I've been on the training team for 3.5 years. So super excited to have Claire on the team and to have her working with all of you wonderful folks. And I'm excited to learn more about you guys. I've met a few of you guys, at least on a camera in person. But yeah, so that's all about me.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Today, it's kind of the basics, so I apologize in advance. We've got hopefully not super boring, but I love that we have just kind of a few different levels here. We have Catherine, who, like she said, has been thrown in for like a week, and then we have Michelle, who's been in it for, like close to a year unofficially. So one thing I like to do is just, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me in the middle. I really don't mind. I prefer questions and just a lot of engagement, and we all are obviously coming from a ton of different places, so I think we have a lot to offer each other too. Who can see my PowerPoint? Everybody can? Okay. I've had a few issues in the past, and like I said, my animals decided to just bust on in my office. So starting out today, just a quick agenda for you guys so you know what's happening to you. Leasing manager job description. This is kind of your like checklist, so we'll go over that. Prospect calls, auditing, because that's the fun part of our job, and then market surveys. For that leasing manager job description, I know I sent it out like hour and a half ago or something. So we're going to just touch on some of the quick things. I don't feel the need to like read through everything. So first one is first, we chunk it out by the pledge because that's exactly who we are. This is what we do. So for superior customer service, the portion of the job as a leasing manager, this is really basically just a big portion of what property management is. Really, it's about learning the resident's name, engaging with them, doing above and beyond. Who knows what above and beyond is? Everybody know? Yeah? Okay. If you don't, that's fine. Let me know. Above and beyonds are, just how we really get to know our people, get to know our residents. We have this special budget that we can really just like, I have the superhero thing on here because that to me was what being a leasing manager and a leasing agent in Horizon means. It means that we have funds to go be superheroes for people. If you hear about anything, so just know your budget there. This is also, once you know your residents' names and you get to engage with them more, this is going to make your renewal walk-in knocks so much more comfortable. It's also a huge portion of what you do with your team. So superior customer service, it's not just about your residents and your prospects. It's about engaging with your team, getting to know them on more of a personal level instead of just at work. So, remember just to give them the same level of customer service that you would for your resident, your prospect, and your vendors too. And for market leaders, my thing, I think for me, in some ways, this was the hardest role for me to grasp as a leasing manager. So I was so focused on having passion for my property that I didn't do as much homework as I should have with my competitors. And so some of the key points to remember as a leasing manager and being a market leader is just ensuring that you know your property, but also knowing your comps. And I think being proactive is a huge part of who Horizon is as a market leader. So market surveys, those are going to help you accomplish a big part of being a market leader and knowing what's going on in the area. And then strong social media presence is another big part of what we do as a leasing manager. So that's Instagram and Facebook, and we have Sochi, which is a great tool that helps us manage all of that, and Craigslist too. I mean, that's another thing about getting our name out there and being a market leader on Craigslist. It's not about just having a photo of your monument sign anymore. It's about going beyond that. And then, another part of that is your outreach. You guys are, that leader to go and outreach to new businesses, to new student groups. So finding out where your niche is and just digging in there a little bit more. But I think truly being proactive is going to be huge in your success and the success of your property and getting to 100%. I know we kind of talked about, we'll talk about it a little bit more actually, because we're going to go into that next. But take pride in your exceptional property appearance. I think, you know, it's always, and I say this all the time, so many times I feel like people just think like this portion of the pledge is so geared towards like your maintenance team and your maintenance supervisor, but it's a huge part of what we do. It's our job to ensure that our product looks perfect. So the Clubhouse SOP, which we'll go over a little bit later on in our boot camp, but this is your Clubhouse SOP is going to be your guide. And some people tend to pull that out for site visits and site visits alone. And really it's, you know, something that I want to encourage you guys to think bigger and, you know, to do better than that. So go above and beyond with your office POPs. Does anybody who wants to say what a POP stands for? Bonus points, gold star. I'll tell you a secret about myself.
So the point of what? We just were giving some last week together.
Point of purchase.
Yeah, point of purchase.
Thanks, Anthony. You get a gold star, and I'll teams you a secret about myself later. So POP, you know, making sure that you have that throughout your office and that it's changing constantly. You know, displaying your resident event calendar so that you're continuing to engage with your residents and your prospects, because that's absolutely a tour point, is that resident calendar. Also a big part of property appearance is building your property's brand. You know, we'll cover really like marketing and POP a little bit later, but that's a huge part of showing what your property appearance is and showing who you are. You know, walking the tour path, the model, and the amenities just throughout the day, making sure all of that's absolutely perfect. Another thing, you know, just to kind of encourage you guys is, as leasing managers, you know, I understand that you can't do absolutely everything. You can't just go run, grab the 12-foot, 20-foot ladder to go replace a light bulb that's super high up, but it's just empowering yourselves to be urgent in your communication with the other members of your team too. So, you know, make sure that if you see a light bulb or something out, or something that just needs to be fixed, or, you know, a banner that needs to go up, but it's high up, just being urgent in your communication with someone who can help things to be done. And I think really just as a leasing manager, that's going to be a huge portion of what you guys do. And for exercise extraordinary fiscal responsibility, I don't know why it's always a little bit of a tongue tie for me, but I said it right. So with this, huge portion is going to be your budget. So, I mean, who do you guys think influences your budget more? You as a leasing manager or your account manager?
Both. Leasing manager, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say leasing manager, absolutely. I think just because as a leasing manager, knowing your budget and where you and your leasing agents contribute is going to be your #1 job focus in this portion of the leasing manager job description. And also just really I'd say easily one of the top 5 things that you do as a leasing manager. So, you know, once you know your budget, I would ask for it from your property manager 3 times a month at the beginning, so you know what to expect, where you need to bring money in. I'd ask for it at the middle, so you can take a peek and see where you're at so far, where have you hit, where can you possibly have a back pocket special, you know, empower yourself to come to your property manager with a special idea. And then at the end of the month to see where you hit. So once you truly know your budget and everything about it, then I really strongly encourage you to share it with your team. Teach them about GPR, teach them about other income and where they factor in, because your leasing agents absolutely have a huge value. If they accidentally offer the wrong special, that could be, you know, over a 12-month lease, could be hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, depending on how big that special mess up was. But I think if you encourage your teams to know it and you train them on it, you're celebrating the wins together, you're strategizing together over where you can improve, because they have great ideas, just like you have great ideas. So auditing is another big portion of what we do as leasing managers and how we can be fiscally responsible. Weekly auditing of your lease tracker, Entrata, and your stores. Most of us, I think, have this Entrata feed into our stores, but we all know that that's never completely accurate. And we know we've had a few little issues with this source this year. So, you know, that's a little tough. So it's so important to go in there weekly. What happens if you don't go in there weekly is you forget to go in, and then a month goes by, 2 months go by, you notice that there's an error. And then that's honestly like at least a whole day of auditing. For me, I had a really big property. It took 3 days to find an error because you had to go back super, super far. You had to pull every single file. And so, I'd hate to have you guys do that. So just a quick weekly audit, just double checking that all the numbers are hitting. Cancellations have been removed from the lease tracker and put into a separate section. So it's just truly, truly going to help you in the long run. I promise it's not just like an extra task. Also, if you don't have a lease tracker or know where it's at, email me. Or even if you're not sure if you know what your lease tracker is, just shoot me a Teams or an email today, and we'll find it and we'll build it together. Any questions so far on the job description? No? So another challenge I have for you all, if you haven't done it yet, is, I know I emailed it to you. So if you haven't signed your leasing manager job description yet, then spend 5 minutes with your property manager, just reading over it together, and then you both sign it. So that's just a little piece of homework for you. But we have so many resources now, which I like to think makes it a lot easier on you guys. So where you can find this is we have a leasing manager channel for Horizon on the Teams. If you're not added on that, Catherine, I'll make sure that you're added on that because I think you might be the only one. But we have that leasing manager channel, so connect with each other on there. If you have questions or if you have a great idea, pop that on there. I just want to encourage everybody to really use it as a resource and use each other as a resource. But so this was something CJ originally created for property managers. So I stole it because good ideas you should always steal. And I've made it for the leasing managers. So I pop this out usually at least a week before the month starts, just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up. But use this as a checklist. I was at a property a few weeks ago and he had this as his background on his desktop. So I thought that was really cool. It made me feel a little good just because I do take a little bit of time here, but I like to think that it's helpful. So if there's anything you think that could be added on here, let me know and I'll make sure additional things get added. If it's not helpful too, let me know why, or, just build something else that is going to be helpful for you, just to make sure that these things are getting done, tasks are getting done. Do we all know what happens when a Monday report doesn't get submitted? The partners get mad. And so there's a lot of reasons why we have all of this built out. Also today, prospect calls. Who knows that I hate prospect calls? Nobody, right? Because I'm a nerd. Prospect calls are my absolute favorite thing. I don't know why. I just absolutely love calls. So if you have questions about them, let me know. But I wanted to talk to you guys just really about what our expectations are for our calls, because as leasing managers, it's our job to set the expectations for our leasing team. So as far as the call analysis emails that come through, if you're not getting those, I'd be more than happy to make sure that you're on those emails. So anytime a score comes through, it gets emailed to you, the property manager, the regional, the training team. So a lot of people get these emails when they come through because we really want it to be a celebration when we have really great calls. So what we have is 80% minimum on your call analysis scorecard. And then we do have the 79% or less protocol. And this is just to make sure, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this already from MER, is it's that 1% growth every single day that Greg talked about at MER. We're just always striving to improve 1% each day. Tomorrow's going to be better than today was, but today's better than yesterday. So that's really what we're striving for here. So it's your responsibility to train your team and ensure that they're capable of taking prospect calls. We've had a lot of new leasing agents, a lot of onboarding happening. So if you do have a new leasing agent, you know, we have an onboarding checklist, but it's super important that we have them listen to 10 calls before they take a call themselves, because we want to empower them and give them the resources to have a great call right off the bat and not have to, you know, follow the protocol when it doesn't come through. It's not a bad thing when a low score call comes through by any means. It's just always growth for improvement. So when that happens, when a team member gets below 80%, protocol would be that you both listen to the call together and take notes on what they did really well and where they can improve. And I always have to include the section of what they did well, because we never want somebody to forget what they're already doing great. And so, you know, always make sure that that's in there and celebrate those wins with your team. And then from there, email those notes to your property manager, your regional, and training at Horizon RA. Just with, you know, how you guys plan to move forward. So that is, I feel like, something that's really, really helped our calls. As a company, we've improved 13% since November, which is just absolutely amazing. Company-wide, we're sitting at 85% average for our calls. So that's a big part to you guys, your teams. So thank you in advance, and let's keep striving to hit 90% by the end of the year. And I think that's going to be really big. Also, one thing with the call analysis scores that come through, the people who score them are humans just like you and I are. So mistakes happen. That's why I always encourage you to listen to every single call that comes through. And if you need a rescore, maybe you got a phone number, which is 20 points. So we want to make sure if you got that phone number, you get those 20 points. Listen to the call, make sure that things happened, and it's always great to listen to our own calls. And then email me and I'll submit a dispute for you, and we'll make sure that that score gets corrected. If it's ever somebody or a call that shouldn't have been scored, email that to me and we'll get it removed. One thing that Entrada, just kind of a little snippet, my relationship with Clint from Entrada, that has taught me is that if you do have a prospect or a lease, so somebody's leased but they called and they had a question, so the call was scored, always just say a little something about it, like, oh yeah, you leased here, you know, you already have a guest card, you know, because one with that is that Entrada doesn't know if they're already in our system. They don't think to like look back and do all of that. That's a lot of extra steps for them. So we just need to take an extra second and say, oh yeah, it looks like you already have a guest card in here. They won't score the call. The other thing to that too is a lot of times when you go off of, I mean, that handy dandy phone tracker, you can see who it is, but your prospects tend to forget that you have call tracking. And so we want to make sure we're showing them that we have great customer service and that we're not just kind of blowing them off in any of our calls. And so we just say a little something like, oh yeah, you've leased here. And then that builds your rapport with them even more. And they don't feel like they've been forgotten and like, oh, I worked with you for like a month and you haven't even said my name. It's like, you know who it is, but they might not know that you know who it is, if that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions or any issues that they've come across during the call analysis? Scored calls? No? Okay. I'm gonna have, yeah, Renee.
So sometimes I get people that just want to know, like I had a lady call the other day and she was like, what is, before you tell me pricing anything, what do you, or she wanted to know pricing and then what we check, like, you know, we do 3 months of, or 3 times the amount of income. And so as soon as she heard that, she wanted to get off the phone right away. So it's like, sometimes you just, I don't know, I have trouble sometimes with people that just want pricing and they don't want to give too much information out.
Absolutely. One of the top things, I mean, that's usually the pricing is so huge for everybody. And once you give somebody a price, click, they're done. They have everything they need. So I always like to stress, try and get those 5 main things, the 5 20-point questions from the scorecard first. say, absolutely, I'd love to get you that information. By the way, what's your name? And just grab their name really quick. And then, you know, I always like to use a little, you know, like trick and say, yeah, my phones have been a little funky today. What's the best phone number in case we get disconnected? So use some sly tools to kind of get some of that basic information. And then, you know, if they get really pushy, like, absolutely, you know, it does depend on a few different things. If you don't mind, I have a few questions. You know, pricing is dependent upon a few different things. So I always like to say, you know, when are you looking to move? And another thing that is dependent upon our price is, you know, how many people will be in the apartment, kind of thing. So that's one thing there. And then with the screening criteria too, would be, you know, absolutely, we do have a thing, but it might not be a full denial. It could mean an additional deposit. So just kind of knowing where you can adjust your screenings or, you know, require additional deposits. And then also just be careful about fair housing.
Okay, so what I've been saying when they're like, oh, I just want your pricing on your 2 bedrooms, I'll say, oh, before I can pull up pricing, I do need to start a guest card for you.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, love that. That's perfect. Any other questions? No? Okay. So for the call analysis scorecard report, Entrata has all of these amazing tools and resources for us. So I want to encourage you guys to utilize them. So where you can go and find this, the call analysis, so if you go to your report section, it's going to be in communications, or you can favorite it and it makes it a whole lot easier. And so pull this report for your property, choose your time frame that you want, and then little fancy trick here is click this show detail, because it's automatically going to filter to no. But if you filter it to yes, what happens is it pulls that scorecard, that really long, intense scorecard. I know I made it, I'm sorry. But it pulls that scorecard, all of the questions. It shows how many points every question is worth, and then it shows the percentage that you and your team are getting on each individual question. So it's not just showing you how many calls have been scored for that month in your average. It's going to go into detail, and that gives you automatically a great way to help train your team moving forward, know where you guys can improve, and see where you're doing and see what you're doing really well on too, because again, that's always super important. But so what I want to encourage everybody to do is just to test this at some point this week, pull this, see where you guys are doing awesome at. If you guys don't have any calls scored for the month of June yet, it's still early. If it's middle of the month and you don't have any calls scored, let me know, and we can train on a couple of ways that we can get that score. And I can always reach out to my buddy Clint at Entrata and we'll get some calls scored. So another handy tool that they do, so there's call analysis scorecard, and that's a whole separate report. This is a totally different report. This is call analysis by agent. So I have a little example in here for you by somebody who clearly gets 100% basically on every call that she does. So this is going to be in communication, just like the call analysis scorecard, but it's used to see where each specific leasing agent stands in the scorecard. It's also going to show you that little call ID, so little secret here. Anytime there's a blue button in Entrata, that means it's clickable. So if you click on this button right here, which I can't because it's just a screenshot, but I can actually listen to the call that was scored. So that's really great. Makes it an easy way to pull calls together, train your team, get them in your office, and just pull this report, and then you can listen to the scored calls together. So you can also pull this to see what calls have been attempted to score, or what other calls that they've had. So you can always listen to a call that wasn't scored. Any questions on these reports? You guys don't have any questions?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
I have questions.
So I'm trying to look it up. I'm having trouble, or maybe I'm not connected to the scoring. But maybe we can talk after the class.
Yeah, absolutely. I will give you a call right after our training, and then we'll look into this together because we'll want to make sure that your calls are scored. Thanks, Renee. If any of you guys ever, if that happens too, let me know. We can hop on calls too. Training your team. Just going super quick today. So training your team in prospect calls. I wanted to talk to you guys. Oops, went forward. I wanted to like ask you guys and see what you've done so far, or maybe even what you plan to do in prospect call training with your team. So I wanted to kind of like do a little round tabling. So you guys will have to unmute yourselves and start talking. And I can unmute you guys for
Michelle is really good. Come on, Michelle.
Wait, what's happening?
Sure.
Sorry, I was answering another question and something else.
Oh. So what are you doing to train your team in prospect calls and gain those improvements, or what ideas do you have to move forward in training your team?
So I do have that thing you were just talking about where highlighted, where anything that's below 80% is where we need to improve.
Love it.
In the call analysis scorecard. So we go over that in the meeting. That's like previous months. That's one way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have them, anytime they get a call that is below 80%, I have them kind of listen to it on their own first.
Okay.
Then they, it's like, it's not okay, you're in the principal's office for, they can listen to it on their own and kind of see what they think. And then they come in and we talk about it. And so it's kind of like more of an open discussion at that point.
Yeah, I really like that. That's good.
Yeah.
We listen to our calls together as a team. And then, so we'll pull like a couple of them per person, and then we give each other feedback, and we pull some of mine, we pull some of theirs, and that's helpful. It actually is really helpful for all of us to listen, and it gets us more comfortable, and it kind of gets us more comfortable listening to our calls, and then everybody has their own feedback, so they'll kind of pull out something positive that they hear, or something like, hey, your tone in that call, I could tell that you were tired. And then we kind of come up with a plan like, okay, if you are feeling tired and you need a break from calls, let us know, because we do have other people on the team, so we can kind of like game plan together, like, oh yeah, that day you were pretty good with being on the phone, so let us know, and then we'll jump on the phone.
Yeah, I like that. A little plan of action there.
Gotcha. We probably move forward doing both. At first, meeting one-on-one, and then having a team meeting to go over calls as well, just so we can get that one-on-one training, and then I can bring that one-on-one training to the team, and they know exactly what my standard is and where I'm coming from as far as grading their calls. And that way, we kind of all critique each other, because I all kind of go with that standard as far as the call goes.
Yeah, I like that. And I think encouraging them to listen to other team members' calls is really going to make those improvements, because when you hear how somebody phrases something, you're like, oh, I was not to phrase it that way. That's so smart. And so they can pick up on little tips and tricks. And yeah, I've had great results there. Anything else? Okay. So we'll keep moving right along. I don't want to keep you guys too long because it's all busy. Audit. Like I said, those are such a fun part of the job, right? No, okay. So lease tracker, source, and Trada. I know we touched on this already because it's so important. So every single week, this is really just something, you take 20, 30 minutes, depending on how many leases you had and all of that. So pull your pre-lease and renewals report, pull your lease tracker, grab every single file that you have, and just make sure that each reservation is the correct number in the tracker. It matches the scheduled billing charges. The source is reporting accurately. So does this take time? Yeah. Is this important? Yeah. So just, if you have questions on this or need help, have your team help you as well. Or, always feel free. I always felt bad auditing because it took me away from the floor. And, so for me, it was just being in communication with my team too was really important when I was doing this, because I had to tell them, hey, I'm going to kind of not answer phones for a few minutes if I can. If you guys can just really help out here, I'm going to kind of shut my door and just bust out the lease tracker audit, but let me know if you need me. So it was just kind of like they knew that I was working on something. They knew that I wasn't just sitting on my computer. And so sometimes these things just have to be done. It's part of the job, but having that communication makes your team feel a lot better too. So that was my little tip there. And then we also have the leasing performance report. So this is another kind of audit tool that we have through Entrata. And this is going to give you a snapshot into your leads and leases from the previous week. So there are 3 factors to really look at when going through this report. And usually this report gets emailed to everybody on Monday. But if it's not getting emailed to you, again, let me know. I'd be happy to add you to that. So number one thing, I think your first focal point is your new leads. Does this seem like it's super high? Does it seem like traffic has slowed? So that's your portion to inspect and say, okay, it says we have 30 new leads. I really don't think we had 30 new leads. Click on it and see who's reporting as a new lead. Or maybe it was just a lot of spam leads or something like that. So what's changed in your market is another big factor to play in here. So maybe I need to do a market survey immediately because it looks like everything's slowed down. Another one would be your outgoing contacts, your outgoing follow-ups. So who's seen that I've started a little competition on the Leasing Manager channel? Yeah? Okay. I love that we can see how many outgoing follow-ups are being done for every single leasing agent. So take a peek at those and see what's happening, how many outgoing emails are being done by the team, outgoing calls and outgoing texts. Are they putting in the time to do follow-ups? We have to inspect, and I know it's hard to sometimes inspect our own team, but we have to set the expectations high and really take a peek into things just to make sure that they're getting done. And another little thing to keep an eye on with this section is identify if they're relying too heavily on emails. Calls are a great source of follow-ups, and they really don't take that much time at all. It's sometimes quicker to call somebody than it is to try and type up an email. So take a peek in there. The third one would be your neglected leads. So this is another thing that just kind of come about within the past few months that we can really see what's happening, and it's something that we do look at from the corporate level. So a neglected lead, for a little educational thing, a neglected lead is a lead who hasn't been followed up with in the first 48 hours of submitting a guest card. So it shows us how quickly we're responding to new leads, because the sooner we respond, the bigger our chances are of closing that lead. And then your lead conversion. That's another big part that we want to take a peek at, because that's going to look and show us how many tours we're doing and how many leases we're closing out of those tours. So do we need to pull out closing techniques and get our team to try new closing techniques? Are we getting stagnant somewhere? Why aren't our tours being closed? What's happening here? So just another inspecting point for us. So I have these pulled for us to just kind of take a little view. So I've highlighted the areas. I know it's just a snipping tool, so they're not perfect straight lines, and I'm a little OCD, but so that first section, traffic and events, this is where you look at your leads, your outgoing follow-ups. And then there's a neglected lead section under that. And so that's going to show neglected in the first 24 hours and then neglected in the first 48 hours. One thing to also keep in mind here that we're absolutely aware of is that some properties aren't open on Sundays. So any guest card that's submitted Saturday after we close is going to be counted as a neglected lead because we don't follow up with them until Monday. So we're absolutely aware of this. We keep that in mind. We know that there's going to be a few people in here. It's about really looking to see, is it something more than that? So always take a peek at your neglected in the first 48 hours. Again, these handy blue buttons, you can click and see exactly which lead that these are showing. And then in the first 48 hours, you can see. Market survey is another big portion of our job, because we have to know what's going on in our market in order to know that we're the best. You know, we are the best. We might not be the new product, but we're the best product. But the only way we can do that is by knowing our market. And I know I shed some light. I was never the best at being a market leader, but you guys are going to be better than me. So we're going.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
How do you pull the report for those neglected leads?
The neglected leads is in the leasing performance report. So you can pull that from the Entrada reports tab. And then if you just search leasing performance, I think if I go in there, I might not be able, think it would be under leasing.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. So market surveys, we are doing them in the source now. So once a week, hop into the source, do a market survey, find out what's going on. And then the main things that you're always going to want to get: occupancy, conventional sites. I know you guys don't do pre-lease, but you know, renewals is a good one. And then your total pre-lease. So combined pre-lease, combined renewals. And I've been there, a lot of properties in student housing don't separate between renewals and pre-leases. They just have a total, but they do keep track of how many renewals they get. So feel free to do the math for them. Be super friendly when you're doing these as well, because we're all in the same market together. So I always like to think of it if like, well, if they're increasing GPR, that means we can increase GPR too, and we're all making money. So, you know, build your relationship with your competitors, and, you know, feel free to do the math for them. Just ask them, how many renewals did you get? And you can easily calculate that based on how many beds that they have and get your percentage there. Ask them what specials they have running. This is another really, really big one, because that tells you what specials you can run. If your traffic seems super slow, but they have really high traffic, that probably tells you that their specials are a little bit better than yours at the current moment. Also ask them what their traffic's been like. How many tours have you done so far this week? Or how many tours did you do last week? How many new leases alone last week? And then I always like to keep in mind marketing trends. So, you know, we have some tough markets out there. So keep in mind, if you have a lot of cancellations all of a sudden, do a market survey and ask your competitors how many cancellations they've gotten, and really dig deep in there. If you see something that looks off, ask about it. It probably isn't just happening to you and your property, it's probably happening to all of your competitors. But if it's not happening to your competitors, then that's a huge inspection tool that we should really just dive deep into. And I want to encourage you guys to look at the big picture. It's so easy to kind of get that micro goggle lens where we're just so focused on our leases and our tours and all of that. But you know, take a peek at the bigger picture, and we'll go into this a lot more throughout our little boot camp training here. So I'm not gonna get on a tangent because I tend to do that. But anyway, so you go into portal at Horizon RA, you click on the source, and then at the right or the left hand drop down, that's your market survey. We do have a training recorded on there on how to update and edit this. So let me know if you need that. Megan posted that video a little while ago in the resources channel. Any questions so far on market survey? No? Okay. And then I just wanted to take a second. So think about any takeaways that you had from today. Think about what was helpful, or maybe what you already knew or what wasn't super helpful. And if you have a second, if you don't, that's fine. But if you have a second, send me an email on something that was really helpful for you that we covered today. But otherwise, you know, I just wanted to thank you guys for joining me, and I'm super excited to continue our calls for the next 2 weeks. I mean, we only have 3 more after this, so they're going super quick. If there's also something that you want me to cover that you think I should include, let me know. I'll pop something in. We can make sure that we hit it together, because again, as leasing managers, if you're struggling, it's probably something that other people are finding pain points and having the same pain points as you are. Anything else, guys, before we leave? No? Okay. You're so quiet.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
I'll give you a call in a second.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.